In the not-so-distant future, Dr. Evelyn Carter, a brilliant historian and physicist, had dedicated her life to unraveling the mysteries of ancient Rome. She had spent countless hours reading and theorizing, wishing she could truly experience the era herself. After years of research, she finally made a breakthrough. Her team at the Chrono Research Institute had developed a prototype time travel device, a sleek, wrist-bound gadget no bigger than a watch, powered by quantum entanglement. The team had only tested it on inanimate objects, but Evelyn knew this was her chance. With a deep breath and a hopeful heart, she set the device to 45 BC, around the time of Julius Caesar's rise to power. She touched the button, and in an instant, the lab around her vanished in a swirl of light and shadow. Evelyn felt her body stretch and snap back together as if pulled by invisible strings, and suddenly, she was standing in the middle of a bustling street under a brilliant blue sky. Ancient Rome surrounded her, vibrant and alive. The air was thick with the scent of spices, baking bread, and the sweat of hundreds of people milling about. Marble columns towered over narrow alleys, and vendors shouted from the sides of the streets, selling everything from olives to scrolls. Her modern clothes had vanished, replaced by a tunic, sandals, and a cloak fastened by a bronze pin. She touched her chest, reassured by the hidden pouch containing her time travel device. As she walked through the forum, she marveled at the statues of gods, the imposing Senate House, and the sheer energy of the city. She was part of a living tapestry, witnessing history in the making. Passing a group of soldiers, Evelyn overheard whispers of a potential conspiracy against Caesar. Intrigued, she followed the group into a crowded tavern, where men and women huddled together over wine, discussing politics in hushed tones. Over the next few days, Evelyn explored the heart of Rome, cautiously navigating the streets and befriending locals. She spent her nights in a small room she had rented, keeping a detailed journal of everything she saw. She recorded the language, the mannerisms, the food, everything. She attended public speeches, awestruck by the orator's power and passion, and even witnessed Caesar himself parading through the city with an air of confidence and charisma that electrified the crowd. One evening, as she wandered near the Senate House, she noticed a group of senators whispering urgently, their faces clouded with tension. Among them was a man she recognized immediately, Brutus. She could hardly believe it. She was witnessing the unfolding of a plot that would soon change the course of history. She followed them from a distance, but as she turned a corner, she was stopped by a Roman guard. "Lost citizen?" he asked, his hand resting on the hilt of his gladius. Thinking quickly, she replied, I was just looking for the temple." The guard looked her over suspiciously, but eventually shrugged and pointed her down a different street. She hurried away, her heart pounding. This was no game. The political stakes here were deadly. Evelyn knew the history, of course, but seeing it unfold in person gave her a new sense of dread. The next day was the fateful Ides of March. She felt an urge to warn Caesar, but she held herself back, knowing that interfering with history could have catastrophic consequences. She positioned herself near the Senate House, close enough to watch but far enough to remain unnoticed. The sun was high, casting a harsh light over the steps as Caesar arrived, surrounded by his supporters. Evelyn held her breath, gripping the edge of her cloak as Brutus and the others approached. In an instant, the air filled with gasps, cries, and the glint of daggers. She watched as Caesar fell, his eyes wide with betrayal and pain, his final words lost in the chaos. Evelyn felt the weight of history settle heavily upon her. This was the moment that had reverberated through millennia, and she had witnessed it with her own eyes. Her mission complete, Evelyn retreated to a quiet corner and activated her device. The Roman world blurred around her, and she was swept through time, landing once more in her sterile, fluorescent-lit lab. She was breathless, clutching her journal to her chest. Her team rushed forward, peppering her with questions, but Evelyn could barely speak. "I saw it," she whispered. "I was there." Years later, her journal would become one of the most significant records of Rome, filled with first-hand insights and vibrant details that reshaped the field of history. But for Evelyn, The true reward was the memory of Rome alive, a world of legends made real.